AI isn't just the future, it's your shortcut to staying consistent, growing your list, and connecting with your audience. In this episode, Chris Vasquez, Chief Product Officer at AWeber, reveals how small business owners can use AI to create a weekly newsletter in under 10 minutes, sell products in a natural and authentic way, and turn readers into active referrers. If you're looking to make AI actually work for your business without sounding like a robot, this is your playbook.
Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show, where you will discover how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream. Paul Guyon, the mastermind behind the Lead Machine, introduces you to trailblazers who inspire you to implement life-changing solutions and systems you can model to nurture your leads and get your offers seen by your ideal clients who will invest in themselves and you. Be sure you visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, tune in and get ready to transform your vision into reality.
So welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm Paul Guyon, your host, Lead Machine coach and founder of the Lead Machine Marketing Group and Mastermind. And I'm dedicated to helping you tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream life. So whether you're just starting out or you want to take your business to the next level, let's get this awesome conversation started to turn your dreams into reality. So Chris, thank you so much for coming on the show. I love talking about AI. I love talking about email marketing, especially. It's been my jam for many, many years. I'm really into it. So it's really cool to get the Chief Product Officer at AWeber, and I've been a customer since 2005. So we go a long way back. So before I bring you in, let me just tell the audience a little bit about you and what your role is. So Chris is Chief Product Officer at AWeber, as I mentioned. He leads a talented group of product managers and designers whom I met, building intuitive tools that help entrepreneurs, bloggers, and podcasters and small business connect with their audiences in meaningful ways. They're a very popular platform. Chris has a deep passion for empowering creators to turn their passions into thriving businesses. He's equally dedicated to mentoring product professionals and unlocking their unique superpowers. His approach is rooted with experimentation and constant focus on testing and iterating to uncover valuable insights that drive real results. So at the intersection of technology, creativity, and human connection, Chris Vasquez, welcome to the show. I really appreciate you coming here today.
Thank you so much. I can't wait to talk to you. Paul alluded to the fact that we've talked before in the past, and every time we talk, I feel like it's an interesting conversation. I learned something about his approach to on-the-ground building an audience and effectively turning them into customers. And I expect today is going to be just as fun and interesting as every other time.
Yeah. So let's get started. We could go back and find out why what was the spark that led you to get into email marketing in the first place, without going too deep, because we've got a lot to cover.
So prior to being at AWeber, I was working at a company where we were doing crowdsourced video advertisements. So we would find a brand, normally these were Fortune 500 brands, and that was looking to get a piece of video creative made, and we would pair them with a creator from our network of hundreds of thousands of video creators. And we did all sorts of great work. We did 2 Super Bowl spots, a ton of national spots. It was really fun.
Wow.
But every time I would talk to a brand manager at one of these companies about what was their call to action, what was their most valuable channel for actually converting people other than actually in a store, when it's on a shelf. And it was always email. And I remember I was young at the time, and I always thought, email? Who cares about email? But every single time at these gigantic brands, it was email. And that got me interested into it. And coming to AWeber and getting to see at AWeber, many of our customers are entrepreneurs and small businesses. Seeing that same effect that these gigantic companies were seeing at the solopreneur level or at the small business level was just really fascinating. And it's one of these channels that doesn't get a whole lot of love because it's been around forever, but it's still the most important channel that you can build an audience in if you actually want to turn people into customers.
Yeah, and I've mentioned this many times previously on the show, but the thing about email versus your followers on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and all those other social platforms, YouTube even, you don't own them. So you can't at will send them all or segment them and send them a message and at will say, oh, I've got openings in my salon this today.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't do that. And if they change, not if, when they change the rules, you may no longer have an audience.
Yeah, that's a great point. So at the beginning of the year, there was this fear, and for a day, there was a TikTok ban. And if you had built your entire audience on TikTok and they were only on TikTok, if TikTok goes away in the United States, your entire access to your audience that wants to hear content from you, they want to see your content, they can't have it because you're right. You don't own the relationship. TikTok owns the relationship. And this is like one area I don't oftentimes talk about competitors here, but there is one email platform that I would caution people against using, and that's Substack. It's really easy to use, but if you look at the development of their product over time, they're continuously trying to shift more and more people from the email consumption of content to their own app. And that I would just be really cautious if I were trying to build an audience, knowing that Substack is trying to exert more of that ownership relationship that a traditional social network would. Because that's the magical part is like, the person, I signed up for Paul's newsletter. It's because I want content from Paul. And now he owns that relationship with me, and he can take it to any email platform he wants to, and email me directly and receive emails from me directly.
Yeah. Yeah. And so now things have been really shooken up in the last couple of years, haven't they? With AI, the advent of AI, I'm a content creator, and I'm also in IT and in marketing for a number of different clients and businesses. And so and I'm into operations. There's so many things that we've got to do. So I quickly adopted AI. Said I got to learn how to do this, and then I said, okay, how do I use it for email? Because I want to be able to connect better with my audience. So I know that you've been playing around with AI and testing, and you've got you've got a built-in audience so that you can test and you can iterate, like we said. What were some of the surprising things that you've discovered that some people are doing with email marketing with AI?
So I'll say like the most surprising trend is that, I'll actually speak to a bias that I have. My assumption was going to be that our younger customers would be far more willing to adopt AI than our older customers. And we have lots of older customers who have started businesses as a second act or have been building a business for decades. And that was I was completely wrong in a funny way. Like many of our most ingenious users who are using AI are older business owners or older marketing professionals who have a really good knowledge and understanding of their process. And what that lets them do is automate that process more easily. So we see a number of people, like we have our own AI products that I'm going to talk about in depth in a little bit. But even when we just see folks using Chat GPT, they use it for all sorts of things. One of the most interesting things that I've seen is we had a customer who subscribed to a bunch of their competitors' newsletters. And what they did is they took all of that newsletter content and they fed it into ChatGPT, and they asked for their competitors' email strategy. What types of products were they talking about? Were they offering discounts? And they didn't have to ask all these questions. They just fed it into ChatGPT and asked for a description of each of their competitors' email strategies. And they got back all sorts of information. The fact that some of their competitors were offering discounts. Not only that, but the amounts of the discounts, which allowed them to think about, well, how do I need to position my products so I can compete with some of the discounts folks are offering around Black Friday, Cyber Monday, for example. And that's not something, I think when we think about AI and email marketing, the easiest use case is, can I have my an AI write my email for me? And that's super helpful. It's going to save you a lot of time. But there are all of these complementary things that go into a successful email strategy that AI can save you days of work on. Because if that customer had to manually go through and categorize each of these emails, because they were multiple emails from multiple competitors, it would have taken them forever. And just one other benefit.
They wouldn't undertake it.
Yeah, they wouldn't. You're right. They just wouldn't have done it because they have to operate their business. You know, who has time for that if you're also trying to grow a business?
Yeah.
But the great thing about AI is that it is incredibly good at recognizing patterns, and oftentimes recognizing patterns that we ourselves would never recognize. So when we were building our own AI products, an initial mistake we made is we tried to look at people's content and categorize it ourselves. Say like, this is lighthearted, whatever. And what we found worked a lot better was to ask the model itself to provide us with the categorizations that then the model would use when generating content. Because again, we just don't have the capacity to keep as much in our memory as some of these models do. It's a real superpower.
Yeah, it's interesting that that they did that to analyze the pattern. That's I've done something similar with ebooks. There's ebooks that are designed to generate leads, and I've analyzed a bunch of them and with AI, and I said, build me an ebook authority building framework that I can use to help my clients create books and ebooks that position them as authority, and what questions need to be asked, and what kind of, what do you need to know about the audience, what do you need to know about the product, the call to action, all those things. And that's amazing what they did I hadn't thought of analyzing other people's competitors' emails. That's a great hack.
It's so smart. And on your ebook thing, I have a side business making pickleball paddles because I love pickleball, but I've also always wanted to actually manufacture a thing because I work in digital technology and I wanted to make a physical thing. And I was trying to figure out how to grow my list. And like you're alluding to, lead magnets are still one of the best ways that you can possibly do it. But I was like, I don't know exactly what to make. So I went out and I fed in lots of big pickleball paddle companies' sites and their lead magnets. And I asked ChatGPT, suggest a lead magnet for me that none of these big companies have produced yet. And it suggested a pickleball 101, like basic beginner rules ebook that then I also used ChatGPT to help me make.
Right.
And it's gotten me hundreds of prospects with very little advertising around it.
Wow. Yeah, and that's the organic way. Yeah. That's cool. So one of the things that you can tell right away, and I've got mentors. Ben Gay the third is like the OG of salespeople, salesmen. He's in his 80s now, and he's a real good friend of mine. And he said, I can spot it from a mile away. And the AI that you can just tell when people have, especially if there's a number of 10 items in a bullet list, it's AI. If there are emojis that you just wouldn't put in, that's AI. Someone just did it and they copy and pasted it and they splat it in there and they said, blah, there you go. So you know what I'm talking about.
Exactly. Yeah.
So how do we avoid doing that? And I've had people on the show, Andy O'Brien, humanizing content. He's a copywriter that teaches that. And so how do we avoid sounding like a robot and turning people off?
That is a great question. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've been building that into our tooling, because we've been working on an agent that goes out and proactively creates email for our customers. And it's really important in that sense that it actually sounds like them, because if it doesn't, then it doesn't help them. They're not going to want to send it. And we found a couple things. On the first, like the more existing content that you can show a model, the better output you're going to get. So the agents, if you're not familiar with the way that they work, and they differ from chatbots like ChatGPT, is ChatGPT in most of its forms is reactive. You give it a prompt and it creates something for you. These agents are acting on your behalf in the background, doing a thing. So in our case, it's looking for changes to your website. It's recognizing that you send a weekly newsletter, and it's going to send you drafts when it thinks that you should send a message that your customer will be interested in. There are other agents that say you work for an ad agency and a new RFP comes in. The agent will do a lot of the work of assembling a response to the RFP for you. The stuff that the agent can do, and then it'll pass it back to a human. And so we found that the more of your voice that you can give to the agent ahead of time, the better job it can do. And this is also true for things like ChatGPT. ChatGPT has a feature called projects. I believe they're called projects. Where you can give it documents that it learns from when it's providing responses for you. And you can have it either just learn from the content, but also you can have it pick up the tone. And you can say, as part of your project prompt, when creating content, reference these past documents for content and tone. And explicitly telling the AI tools that you're doing which documents to reference and how to reference them, whether just for content, for tone, or content and tone, that makes a huge difference. That kind of leads to the second part is, with our feature, initially we just had this agent out there. It had your previous stuff. One of the neat things that it can do is it can look at your previous sent broadcasts or your sent messages and adapt tone from that. And that was doing a fine job, but we found that folks were seeing the responses and it still just didn't feel like them. So the second thing I'd suggest you do is spend a little time setting up a system prompt or a project prompt where you tell it some of the words that you would use and you write out some direction for it. Because even just a little bit of direction, we have these two fields, like words and phrases I love and words and phrases to avoid. And just spending 10 minutes on those two fields, thinking about the way that you talk, writing a few sentences, writing an intro to your audience, writing your sign off, that makes a huge difference, because the models and the agents oftentimes don't just use that for the explicit thing that you told it, but they'll be able to infer further tone details from that. And then the last thing is, you're probably not going to be perfectly satisfied with your first draft that you get back, but so many of these tools, ours included, get better as you use them. So you're going to have to spend more time on the first draft than you are on the second, and more time on the second than on the third. But if you're using a quality product, it's going to get better over time. And each time you get something created by this thing, provided you spend time to make it meet your expectations, the next version is going to be better until you spend very little or no time at all.
Wow.
That was a lot. Sorry.
That's great, though. I hadn't thought about using projects that way. I saw it pop up and I didn't really explore it. One of the things that my clients often encounter is that either they don't know that they think they don't have the time, but they need to have at least a weekly newsletter, and that they'll do a monthly or they'll do a quarterly because that's all they think that they have the time for. So how can AI help them break through that barrier and get that kind of thing done?
This is exactly why we built our agent, our newsletter assistant, because like I know that same problem with my pickleball company, and I work in email. I had hundreds of prospects that I never sent a single email to for like 6 or 8 months, which is ridiculous. It's so silly in retrospect, but it's because it's so hard to find the time. Because even thinking about it, it's like, oh, that's going to take me forever. I'm not even going to start. And so the agent that we built, its primary goal is to address that problem, the problem of consistency. Because like you're right, Paul, like so much of email's benefit is consistently showing up. So when your client or when your prospect is ready to make a decision, when they actually are ready to purchase your product or service, you're there and they're familiar with you and they trust you because of the consistent value you've been providing. So the way that our assistant works is you basically just give it a website and you turn it on. And there are some folks, people who really have the time to spend on a newsletter, a weekly newsletter, that they're going to keep manually creating their weekly newsletter. This assistant is designed for folks who have not managed to be consistent for any reason, because of lack of time, because of a feeling of lack of expertise, because you don't know what to write. This is going to give you a draft that removes all of those, frankly, excuses. And I'm a big believer that, generally speaking, sending something, provided it's at least interesting, is better than sending nothing. Now, I'm not suggesting that you send spam or garbage, but that's
Right.
not what we've been creating with the newsletter assistant by and large. It knows your business. If you've sent previous emails, it knows what you've talked about in the past. It understands your website, so it knows your products and services. And it's really good at integrating those products and services in a natural way to the broader story that you're trying to tell. And I'd really recommend that if you aren't sending a weekly newsletter, you at least try it. And even if the first draft that you get isn't exactly what you want, as long as it's interesting to you, I'd suggest that you send it. Because you're going to have the opportunity to iterate. I think in my bio, it mentioned how important I think iteration is. We
Yeah.
have this phrase that we repeat internally a lot, and it's that shipped is better than not shipped. What
Yeah.
that means is like we could sit and work on perfecting a product for forever. Honestly, there's always something that could be better. But for every day, week, sprint, a sprint is a 2-week work cycle for us, that the thing doesn't make its way into our customers' hands, it's essentially worthless. If it's not helping someone, it's worthless. It's worthless until it's shipped. And I'd say the same thing of your newsletter. It's easy to get caught up and be like, oh, well, I got to get this thing perfect. I have to get this imagery right. But what you really need to do is be interesting, is provide
Yeah.
some helpful information. So I'd suggest that you generate a newsletter. One of the neat things about our newsletter assistant is you can use it whether you use Aweber or not. It obviously integrates much better with Aweber, but if you use another tool to send your email, you can still have this agent go out and generate newsletters for you every week and start sending. And like I mentioned earlier, each one that you send, if you spend a little time giving it some feedback conversationally, just like you would with ChatGPT, the next one's going to be better. And then the next one after that's going to be even better until you get to the point where you don't feel like you have to make any changes. That's what I do with my newsletter now. I'm like, okay, I could spend 15 minutes tweaking this, but am I going to make it meaningfully better than what it actually is? And the answer is probably not. So I look at it, I make sure that it's promoting the product that I actually want to promote, and I just hit send. And you know what? The proof is in the pudding here. I'm getting sales from it, where in the past,
Wow.
those leads were just sitting there. But now, because I'm in front of them and they get to see a picture of my pickleball paddle every couple of weeks, they're like, spring is coming. I got to get outside. I should pick one of these up.
I've never played the game, but it does look
Oh,
kind of interesting. I mean, tennis is so brutal especially on older bodies or slower people. It's a skill. It's like golf.
oh, for
But
sure.
pickleball looks like a lot of fun. One thing that I want to mention, we talked about people's hesitancy
Mm.
to do weekly. One of my clients says, well, they only buy once a year. They don't want to hear from us throughout the year. They're not ready to buy. When they're ready to buy, that's when we want to send them. I
Mm.
said, well, you don't know. You've got 10,000 people on your list.
Yeah.
You don't know. How do you know that they're not thinking about awards or pickleball paddles or a new knife set or whatever, a new ebook, how do you know that they're not thinking about that now? They could be looking, they might have forgotten us, and they go to, I don't remember who it was, so I'm just going to go Google this product and go whoever's at the top of the list.
Yeah.
So how do you? I mean, I just answered my own question.
You're that good, Paul.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, but they're adamant. They're adamant that they don't see the value in weekly communications. And so, well, what do we talk about? Well, you don't always have to talk about your product. In fact, you can talk about education. You can talk about, if it's a seasonal thing, you can say, here's what I do to winterize my snow blower, because I live in northern Michigan. Those kinds of things can be useful too. I know they're customer loving content. Your customers love all kinds of content. They want to be entertained. So what are your thoughts on that, and how could AI help with
that? Is such a good point. Like, the benefit of a weekly newsletter is not that you're promoting your product every week. That's not the benefit to the user. The user's benefit is they learn something that you're an expert in every week. It was really funny that you mentioned that. I was just working with a customer who owns an interior design agency, and they're setting up the newsletter assistant for themselves. And one of the fields that you set up, we auto-generate some of these, but she was in there providing her own kind of training to it, is topics of interest, where you can describe some things that your audience might be interested in. And I'll read a few of these off because I think it's illustrative of the types of things that you can write a newsletter about if you are an interior designer. So she has a couple categories. It's home design and renovation tips, interior design trends, things like colors of the year, mixing modern and traditional elements, styling and decor advice, layout and space planning, kitchen and bath inspiration. And then in each of these are these subtopics that we've generated, things like spa-like bathroom ideas you can actually achieve. And there are dozens of these topics here. And that is, like half of your year of newsletter content right there that you don't have to worry about. And none of them are, let us remodel your bathroom for you.
Yeah.
It's a email about trends in bathroom design that lead really naturally to a organic promotion of their service. And this might seem like, well, that's interior design. Lots of people have questions about interior design, but lawn care is another one. If your product is in some way related to lawn care, there are all sorts of tutorials that you could be teaching folks about getting ready for the spring or winterizing your lawn. We have a number of realtors who use the assistant, and their topics are things about like things to do in the neighborhood. We have another customer who operates rental properties, and they actually only send a monthly email, but their email is the local weather and recent and upcoming events. Because what they're trying to paint the picture of is, you want to go to this place because it's beautiful weather and lots of fun stuff is going on.
Right. What it's like to live there. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
For people who don't live there. Yeah.
Yeah. And so our tool does this automatically, but if you want to test this out for yourself, just go to ChatGPT or to Claude or to Gemini or any of these publicly available chatbots, and in human language, ask something like, my business focuses on, and then whatever your business focuses on, drop in a link to your website, and then say, give me 20 topics that my audience might be interested in for an email newsletter. And I guarantee you, it's going to give you a bunch of stuff to get started with, a bunch of ideas. And then you can use a tool like our assistant to turn each of those ideas into a fully fleshed out email in your voice, ready to send in a couple minutes time.
Yeah, and you can take each of those topics and break down the subtopics underneath it, just like you did with the interior designer. And then you could have a whole year's worth of content, and you can load it up into your thing and schedule it all out. And then you don't have to do anything.
Yeah.
Except for, I like to I like to include what's going on in my life or what's going on
Mm.
now, as part of my newsletter. And but you could still have all the content that goes along with it.
Yeah.
I do a podcast, and so I don't always know which podcast is coming up, but I know what's coming up this week. So
Mhm.
I always tell a story about my current podcast, um, and how whatever my experience relates to that, like the internet outage I was telling you about,
Mhm.
which made my newsletter late this weekend. But it was talking about what was my guest? My guest was talking about, well, sometimes it's not just your strategy, because or the different tactic that you need to do. Sometimes it's something that's deeper.
Yeah.
And in this case, the deeper for me was my internet service provider equipment. I
Mm.
tried everything, and I have a strategy for troubleshooting and all that. But it ended up I was on tech support line with Charter Spectrum last night at about 8:30, troubleshooting it, and I'd done all the troubleshooting they were going to ask me to do before I called, because I'm in IT and I know that's what they're gonna waste my time with, unplugging it and plugging it back in.
Mhm.
But I was able to get my my newsletter out because of my hotspot on my phone, and so I was able to get it out. Uh, so that was a little slice of life that I was able to correlate that with the topic of my podcast. So, and of course I use AI to help me do that.
Yeah.
I just told it the story, and it helped me make it sound like me and flesh it out and not be all and all that. Uh, you know,
Yeah.
different different pauses
The
and things like that.
the last time we talked, you told me about your process for adding that story, and I tried it in
Yeah,
my most recent pickleball email with the assistant, and it worked really well.
yeah,
I think you described that you start by telling the story of whatever interesting thing in your personal life happened for that week, and then you have the AI that you're using turn it into intro paragraphs, the
yeah,
essentially like the personal
yeah.
meat of your newsletter.
Hmm.
And I tried the same thing with ours, where I just like focused the prompt field for the Aweber agent, and I told it a story about how it's warm now and the pickleball courts are starting to get more populated, and I love that. But I'm also torn because I love the hardcore group that's out there in the middle of
Yeah.
the winter in gloves, freezing cold. And I told it in that way, where it's all like jumbled up and with some uhs and ums, and it
Yeah,
turned it into this beautiful. I think like a 3 paragraph intro that I was like, that's exactly what I wanted to say, but I couldn't,
I
and
know.
it did it for me.
Yeah. I and what I do is like I told you this before. I just dictate it into either Google Sheet, or Google Docs, or Microsoft Word is my thing. If they have a dictation,
Hmm.
and I just start rambling about this thing that happened when I was a a, uh, a Pop Warner football coach, and how my losing team beat the undefeated team because of mindset, and it was because it was a mindset podcast, and I was ums and ahs, and but it turned it into a beautiful story, and I shared it with my son. He goes, "Wow, Dad, that was such a great experience. I remember that day," you know. And so that's how you can tell. That's how you can make it personal,
Hmm.
entertaining, but you can also tie it to your product. So you can do it. You can do both at the same time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's see. We've talked about a lot. What do you think of the future of AI agents is? I know that's a real big thing in the last 6 or 8 months. It's been going on for
Hmm.
quite a while. I wrote a GPT for producing podcast notes, but
Yeah.
this is more. There's AI voice agents. There's conversational AI. There's all these new agents that are coming about. What are you thinking about? It's going to happen in the future, especially with regard to email.
I think that they're just going to become agents themselves are going to become more ubiquitous. So they're they're going to take away all of the tedious aspects of email marketing. So there are a ton of things that take me time every time I'm going to send my email. And on the front end, it's making sure that I've done all the research on my content. That's what we're really focusing on with the newsletter assistant right now. Like, it goes out and does initial research. It makes sure that it's pulling in the products that you want, that it's aware of promotions that you have, your business hours if you're a physical location, all this copy pasting that you would have previously had to do in the past. These agents are really good at finding and remembering information, so it's always just there before you even have to ask for it. That's a big part of it. Another big part of the future that we see is that folks are going to start to trust these tools more. There's a concept in AI called human in the loop, which means that you involve a person when there's a chance for what the AI thinks is right to be significantly misaligned from what the human might want. So in our case, there's a human in the loop before it ever sends an email. So it never just automatically sends an email out without first asking you if you want it to go out to your audience and want it to make changes. And right now we see people making a lot of changes, but the agents are going to just keep getting better. People are going to get more familiar with them and familiar with how to interact with these agents, to the point where I think the review processes are going to be very light. It is going to be much more of a check, make sure this thing matches my expectations and tell it to go, as opposed to right now, which is like check, make some changes, and then tell it to go. Now, I will say we're already seeing this. Like, the time it takes someone normally in Aweber from when they first start creating a message to when they schedule it or send it is over an hour. But with the agent, the newsletter assistant, it's I think it's 8 minutes. I was just looking at it this morning. So that's like a very dramatic decrease in the time it takes. It's a little more than 8 minutes from starting the message to actually sending it.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, it's incredible. And then the last thing I would say is AI is really good at pattern matching. One of the things we're really interested in is how can we use it to tell people more about their audience and what they like.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I think one of the next frontiers is going to be, where, again, without you having to ask, we'll be able to tell you in other companies, but I'm primarily interested in us being able to tell you this useful information, is be able to tell you what your customers are most interested in, who they are, and how you might go and find similar people to them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this isn't something that we can do in terms of like, or something we would even want to do in terms of invading people's privacy, but just looking at the types of content that they interact with and telling you how to find other folks who might like that content, and even creating lead magnets for you that that could satisfy those people. I mean, I think we're going to be surprised 2 years from now how much of our tedious work is just gone. It's off our plate, so we can focus on the things that really matter, delivering quality products and really personal service to our clients.
Yeah, I still think though that there needs to be the human interaction, the human AI can't look back on that Pop Warner football game and know how it felt. And I used to tell the boys, what's the most important play? This play. And we beat the undefeated team because we were dangerous because they thought we were a pushover. And that mindset and that story, that feeling, that intuition, AI doesn't have. So the human loop needs to be there.
I completely agree with you. And like our approach philosophically is like, we're not trying to build things that replace people. We're trying to build things that augment people. My background's in design, and I talk to a lot of young designers who I do portfolio reviews or something for, and they're kind of petrified about the world that they're entering, and because they see, like, frankly, we're already starting to see some of these entry-level production design roles go away, and those roles are really like tedious things. It's like, go get an asset from a data or from an asset management portal, put it into this template, save the template out, and then send the result to someone. That is something that automated tools can do and doesn't require the things that make humans so innately special. You're just a thing following the same process over and over again. But what it does open up is exactly what you're saying, like more opportunities for us to provide a level of service that make people feel special. Like it gives us as designers the opportunity to spend more time getting to know someone, understanding their unique problem, making them feel comfortable. And this is the last thing that these models are not good at right now when it comes to creative fields, providing an actually novel solution for them. Because these models are great at looking at what has come before, the data they've been trained on, and producing really great results based on the stuff that already exists. What they're not great at is coming up with things that have not been done before, and treating people like you were saying. They can't treat people in the same way that a human can, and they can't come up with truly novel thought without a lot of human interaction.
Yeah.
Augment,
Even,
not replace. That's
yeah.
the deal.
And I view it as an assistant.
Mm-hmm.
I call it my assistant, and I actually have conversations with it and say, hey, thank you for your assistance, and we're a great team, because you never know. you never know. You want to make friends with them because
I
who
say
knows
please every time, and thank
yeah,
you.
I know. Well, yeah, that's what you should do.
Yeah.
One thing that I was curious about was getting back to the tool
Mm-hmm.
that you've got. You can point it at your website. Can you point it at your YouTube channel and other types of feeds and like maybe your podcast feed or your YouTube channel to gain more knowledge about what you're covering?
So the answer is in some cases yes, and in other cases not yet. So if you point it to you can definitely point it to a podcast feed, and it will learn from the podcast RSS information. It doesn't yet understand audio or video.
Right.
But if you have an area where you have a feed of your transcripts, or can point it at a page that lists out all your transcripts from your video or from a audio podcast, it can and will learn from that. We also just released the ability, this isn't even publicized in the product yet, but to have it learn from your LinkedIn as well. Because we heard a lot of feedback from people saying that, like, I post the things that sound most like me, I post on LinkedIn because it's like a one-off thought about some interesting story that happened or an idea I have. So that we just released, and that you can either pull in information from your posts. You could say something like, turn my last LinkedIn post into a newsletter, and it'll do a good job. Or it can just inform your content. And that's like I mentioned, people are more themselves on social platforms. They tend to be like quicker and more informal, and that really does impact the content that's generated a lot. Yeah, we are talking to a few podcast hosting platforms right now because we do want to have a connection where you just have, or the agent has automatic access to all of your transcripts. So you can either have it automatically create a message for you every time that you publish a podcast, or it can at least have the context of what your podcasts are.
Yeah, I mean, going back, way back, AWeber, and this I think AWeber was the only one that was doing this at the time anyway, is whenever you generated a blog post, it would post to your newsletter, and you could interact with it first and then say, fine tune it a little bit and hit send, or you could do it automatically, which was very innovative back then. So this is just more of that with AI powered behind it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like our core has always been automation. It's taking away, like, not making you do the things that a machine can do so you can focus on the things that a machine can't do. And so much of what has been the case in email marketing for decades now is time series automation. So like after a certain number of days, this thing happens, or when an action happens, this thing happens. But all of the content still had to come from us. And that's like kind of one of the most time consuming parts. And so to have help with the content side is the next great revolution in automation.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Chris, it's been fascinating. I know we both have a hard break. So let's start wrapping up here.
Yeah.
With your final words, what are 3 things our listeners and viewers can do to put these ideas into action?
So the first thing I'd say is generate that list of topics. Go to a publicly available tool like ChatGPT, Gemini, or Claude, and tell it about your business. Say, this is my website. Give me however many, say, make it a high number, 20, 30 topics that my audience might be interested in for a newsletter. You can do that now. It's going to take you under a minute and you'll have all sorts of starter content. The second thing I'd recommend you start doing is download one of these apps from these well-known chat agents onto your phone and start asking AI when you have a question instead of Googling it. And I know Google has Gemini summaries at the top of their Google results, but get yourself into the practice of going to a conversational agent when you're trying to figure something out. And I almost guarantee you're going to get as good, if not better, an answer than you would through Google search. And it's going to get you familiar with the idea of conversationally interacting with these tools, which is like such a valuable skill right now, is to be able to ask for something, get a response, and then iterate through conversation, just like you would with a human assistant, like Paul mentioned.
Yeah.
And then the last thing I'd suggest you do is go to aweber.com/assistant and start generating a weekly newsletter for yourself. It's as simple as putting in your website. Like, there is no step 2 unless you decide to refine it. But go from not sending anything to sending something using the newsletter assistant. I think you're a year from now, 6 months from now, you're going to be really glad that you did, because you're going to start getting replies from people and eventually sales.
Right. And also on the AWeber blog, there's lots of great content on generating content and how to use their tools. And if you need help with AI or AI ideas like that, reach out to me and I'd be happy to help you with that. And Chris, it's been amazing. I finally catching up with you. I so appreciate you being here today. It's been fun, and I hope you had a good time too. So as we sign off, remember, faith and action go hand in hand. So keep the pedal until the metal. Until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show, I'm Paul Guyon and Chris Vasquez from AWeber. Thanks, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyon, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.